Hello and welcome back to Read by Angelique. I am Angelique and we are continuing on with our reading of The Phantom of the Opera. I am extremely thrilled about where this novel is taking us. I had no idea how invested I would get. I've told you before, it's my sister's favorite book, and I was like, what? Like, that doesn't make sense to me. I've always loved the movie and the musical, the Broadway, or I don't know if it's a Broadway specifically, it's a musical, because I did not see it. I saw it for the first time at the Sydney Opera House, and that's when I had already loved the story, but that's just when I was completely sold. But not only is today's reading going to be extra fun because we are nearing the end, but it snowed here where I live, and I don't get that often. So it's just the perfect, cozy feel, and I'm just ready to snuggle up in this book to read. So I'm just extra excited. Let's do a little recap of what we read in the last video. We read chapter 21. In this chapter, we are in the Persian's perspective, hearing about what happened behind the scenes through the story that we've read so far. So we're seeing from the perspective of the Persian, his perspective of Christine Daae and her relationship with Erik and Raoul. So he's watching all this happen. He's been part of this story the whole time. He's been hiding in the shadows and we didn't know it. We've had a little glimpses of like, so when like every once in a while Raoul or Christine would talk about a shadow, sometimes that was the Persian, not the ghost. So it was cool seeing that he has a history with Erik. He knows his past. He is a dark creature who learned a lot of his skills, specifically with a noose back in the Middle East somewhere. He used to train this little girl, take care of her, entertain her with cruel acts. So, and then he taught her how to use the noose. So they would kill people for fun, which is crazy. And then they would, during this time for entertainment, they would send Erik into a kind of arena gladiator type situation. All he would have is a noose, and these big men would come in ready to like fight, and all Erik would do was use this noose. And he would win every time. A very violent man. And so the Persian, he knew that Erik was one of the signed like architects of the opera house. But in Paris at the time, there was a lot of turmoil. Things were going on. So the construction of the opera house was postponed for a long period of time. But during that period, Erik kept on working to develop his trapdoors and his secret passages. And because the Persian had experience with Erik in the past, he was known as the trapdoor lover. And the Persian was fascinated by all of his neat tricks. And so he recognized the architect's work in the Paris Opera House. He knew that he was doing stuff behind the scenes. Anyway, I'm trying to figure out what all... Oh, the Persian actually tried to get to the lake around the time that the chandelier fell. It was before, like right before the chandelier fell. He tried to get to the lake. But once he got to the water and tried to cross, it was like this siren was calling him. And then a figure came out of the water as he was leaning over the boat and drug him down. But right before he hit the water, he yelled, and the person dragged him down. Erik heard his voice and recognized his cry. He pulled him up, brought him to the bank. And Erik was like, "You are an idiot. You're such a fool. Like, what are you doing here? Never cross the water again. Never try to get to my house again." And the Persian kind of loves mechanics and tricks and stuff. And he's like, okay, yeah, I got it. You're not a good guy. I'm threatened. And Erik was like, you've saved my life once. Like, don't try your luck again, because I will kill you. I can't keep saving you from my own villainy. I don't know. My own murderous intent. And so the Persian's like, well, wait. So what, the siren, the music, like, what did you do? Essentially, or how were you in the water for so long? How was it that the music came, what seemed, from the water itself? And Erik was like, oh, I learned this trick back when I was in this place and traveling, blah, blah, blah. It's this reed that he uses where he can be in the water for hours and hours at a time. Then the Persian kind of disappears, but he's like, I'm going to keep an eye on Erik. And Erik keeps threatening him, and he's like, if you keep poking around, I know what you've been doing. I know the managers have called on you. If they keep pestering you and asking you why you're here, you're going to point them to me. And if they get pointed to me and what I'm doing here, you are going to regret it, and all of humanity is going to regret it. So not only does Erik threaten the Persian, he threatens all humans that he might come in contact with. So the Persian knows that Erik would keep his word about just creating hell for anyone and everyone, and he has no reservation on taking a life. But the Persian wants to keep an eye, and he's like, he's pretty sure that in the future he's going to need to go to his house on the lake, but he can't go across the water. He knows that's a death sentence. So he's trying to find a new way to get in. So he keeps watching, and while he's watching, he sees the relationship between Christine and the angel of music come to life. He sees how Christine is so captivated by the song and all these different things. And he finally finds a place where the angel can get to his house not using the lake, a different way, because he was determined. He was like, there has to be a new way to the house, a different way. And he watches and watches the phantom and will stay in like little corners for hours at a time watching. He finally finds the place where we have already seen that Raoul and the Persian enter his domain, and they land in the torture chamber, right? We've already seen that. And so he kind of describes how he found it in this chapter. But then he also talks about how he saw when Christine was abducted the first time. So he was waiting in the passages underneath. He was waiting for the ghost, trying to find this other passage when Christine was first taken. But while he's watching, he sees Christine there. He sees the ghost put Christine on the horse, but the ghost knows he's there. So he goes and he knocks the Persian out. So he's unconscious. And when he comes to, they're gone. So he goes to the edge of the lake, and he's just like waiting there. And he waits there for like a day, for like 24 hours. Because he's like, Erik has to come out and get provisions at some point. And he knows that Christine is stuck there, and he's like, what atrocities are happening? I know that he kidnapped her. She's not staying of her own accord. Erik finally comes out, but to confront the Persian. He's like, dude, like, you can't stay here. You have to leave. Let me threaten your life again. And the Persian's like, Christine doesn't love you. If you gave her the option, she wouldn't stay of her own accord. So they kind of strike this deal, this bet. And Erik is like, you don't believe me that I would let her go, that our love is real. And the Persian's like, nah, like, your voice might be pretty, but the moment she sees your face, she's gone. She is not sticking around. And Erik's like, well, you just watch, like, wait and see. And to the Persian's amazement, that's exactly what happens. Christine leaves and returns of her own accord. She starts coming and going, and that's during the whole time when Christine and Raoul were having a fake engagement, right? So the Persian's watching this happen. He knows of the fake engagement. He knows Christine is still going to see Erik in his domain. And he's like, what is going to happen? Like, this can't be good. She should not be with him. Blah, 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 blah. And so now he kind of vowed to himself that he knew there was going to be a moment when he would need to rescue Christine, and that he would have to rely on Raoul and his love of her to rescue her as well. And so he's kind of just been waiting. But as soon as the paper released the statement that Raoul and Christine had a secret engagement, he knew that something was going to happen. So when Christine disappeared on the stage during her last performance before she was going to run away with Raoul, the Persian knew something was going to happen. Everyone else was caught off guard, but the Persian was like, I know exactly what's happening. When the lights went out, he's like, the ghost has her. I need to go get Raoul. And so that's where the chapter kind of finishes off. He runs and finds Raoul. But and we figured out like how, anyway, just more about the lasso that he uses to kill people and different stuff. And now the chapter before the last one that we just read, they entered the torture chamber, right? So now this next chapter is called In the Torture Chamber. It's also from the Persian's narrative. And I don't know if this is, so the lady, the Mezendarin, who he was like entertaining with barbaric, murderous ways, he had created a torture chamber in that place. And at the opera house, he created an identical torture chamber as the one that he used to use. So when the Persian and Raoul entered the torture chamber, like sirens are going off in the Persian's head, and he's like, oh my goodness, I've been here before. He recreated the torture chamber. What is going on? This is not good. What has he planned, and what has he been doing? And so now we're entering this chapter, and I'm not sure if we are going back to kind of relive some of his memories from the torture chamber, or we're back in the actual torture chamber in the opera house. We shall see. Phantom of the Opera by Gaston Leroux, Chapter 22, In the Torture Chamber. The Persian's narrative continued. As we were in the middle of a small 6-cornered room, the sides of which were covered with mirrors from floor to ceiling. In the corners we could clearly see the joins in the glasses, and the little segments intended to turn on their drums. Yes, I recognized them, and I recognized the iron tree in the corner, fixed in one of those segments. The iron tree with its iron branch for the hanged man. Okay, so just based off that first chapter, we are back in the story, not in the past. We're in the replica torture chamber with Raoul there. Got it. I seized my companion's arm. The Viscount de Cheny was all aquiver, eager to shout to his betrothed that he was bringing her help. I feared that he would not be able to contain himself. Suddenly, we heard noises on our left. It sounded at first like a door opening and shutting in the next room, and then came a dull moan. I clutched Monsieur de Cheny's arm more firmly still, and then we distinctly heard the words, "You must make your choice, the wedding mass or the requiem mass." I recognized the voice of the monster. There was another moan, followed by a long silence. I was persuaded by now that the monster was unaware of our presence in his house, for otherwise he would certainly have managed not to let us hear him. He would only have had to close the little invisible window through which the torture lovers looked down into the torture chamber. Besides, I was certain that, if he had known of our presence, the tortures would have begun at once. The important thing was not to let him know, and I dreaded nothing so much as the impulsiveness of the Vicomte de Chagny, who wanted to rush through the walls to Christine Daae, whose moans, as we thought, we continued to hear at intervals. The Requiem Mass is not all gay, Erik's voice resumed, whereas the wedding Mass, you can take my word for it, is magnificent. One must take a resolution and know one's mind. I can't go on living like this, like a mole in a burrow. Don Juan triumphant is finished. And now I want to live like everybody else. I want to have a wife like everybody else, and to take her out on Sundays. I have invented a mask that makes me look like anybody. People will not even turn round to stare at me. You will be the happiest of women. And we will sing, all by ourselves, till we swoon away with delight. You are crying. You are afraid of me. And yet I am not really wicked. Love me, and you shall see. All I wanted was to be loved for myself. If you loved me, I should be as gentle as a lamb, and you could do anything with me that you pleased. Soon, the moans that occupied this sort of love's litany increased and increased. I have never heard anything more despairing, and Monsieur de Chagny and I recognized that this terrible lamentation came from Erik himself. Christine seemed to stand dumb with horror, without strength to cry out, while the monster was on his knees before her. 3 times over, Erik fiercely bellowed his fate. You don't love me! You don't love me! You don't love me! And then, more gently, why do you cry? You know it gives me pain to see you cry. A silence. Each silence gave us fresh hope. We said to ourselves, perhaps he has left Christine behind the wall. And we thought only of the possibility of informing Christine Daae of our presence, unknown to the monster. We were unable to leave the torture chamber now, unless Christine opened the door to us, and it was only on this condition that we could hope to help her, for we did not even know where the door might be. Suddenly, the silence in the next room was disturbed by the ringing of an electric bell. There was a bound on the other side of the wall, and Erik's voice of thunder. Somebody ringing. Come in. A sinister chuckle. Who has come bothering now? Wait for me here. I'm going to tell the siren to open the door. Steps moved away, a door closed. I had no time to think of the fresh horror that was preparing. I forgot that the monster was only going out, perhaps to perpetuate a fresh crime. I understand but one thing. Christine was alone behind the wall. The Vicomte de Chagny was already calling to her. Christine! Christine! As we could hear what was said in the next room, there was no reason why my companion should not be heard in his turn. Nevertheless, the Viscount had to repeat his cry time after time. At last, a faint voice reached us. I'm dreaming, it said. Christine! Christine! It is I, Raoul! A silence. But answer me, Christine, in heaven's name! If you are alone, answer me. Then Christine's voice whispered Raoul's name. Yes, yes. Yes, yes, it is I. It is not a dream. Christine, trust me. We are here to save you, but be prudent. When you hear the monster, warn us. Then Christine gave way to fear. She trembled lest Erik should discover where Raoul was hiding. She told us in a few hurried words that Erik had gone quite mad with love, and that he had decided to kill everybody and himself with everybody if she did not consent to become his wife. He had given her till 11 o'clock the next evening for reflection. It was the last respite. She must then choose, as he said, between the wedding mass and the requiem. And Erik had then uttered a phrase which Christine did not quite understand. Yes or no. If your answer is no, everybody will be dead and buried. But I understood the sentence perfectly, for it corresponded in a terrible manner with my own dreadful thought. Can you tell us where Erik is? I asked. She replied that he must have left the house. Could you make sure? No, I am fastened. I cannot stir a limb. When we heard this, Monsieur de Cheney and I gave a yell of fury. Our safety, the safety of all the three of us, depended on the girl's liberty of movement. But where are you? Asked Christine. There are only 2 doors in my room, and the Louis Philippe room of which I told you, Raoul. A door through which Erik comes and goes, and another which he has never opened before me, and which he has forbidden me ever to go through, because he says it is the most dangerous of the doors, the door of the torture chamber. Christine, that is where we are. You are in the torture chamber? Yes, but we cannot see the door. Oh, if I could only drag myself so far, I would knock at the door, and that would tell you where it is. Is it a door with a lock to it? I asked. Yes, with a lock. Mademoiselle, I exclaimed, it is absolutely necessary that you should open that door to us. But how? Asked the poor girl tearfully. We heard her straining, trying to free herself from the bonds that held her. I know where the key is, she said, in a voice that seemed exhausted by the effort she had made. But I am fastened so tight. Oh, the wretch! And she gave a sob. Where is the key? I asked, signing to Monsieur de Cheney not to speak and to leave the business to me, for we had not a moment to lose. In the next room, near the organ, with another little bronze key which he also forbade me to touch. They are both in the little leather bag which he calls the bag of life and death. Raoul, Raoul, fly! Everything is mysterious and terrible here, and Erik will soon have gone quite mad. And you are in the torture chamber. Go back by the way you came. There must be a reason why the room is called by a name like that. Christine, said the young man, we will go from here together, or die together. We must keep cool, I whispered. Why has he fastened you, mademoiselle? You can't escape from his house, and he knows it. I tried to commit suicide. The master went out last night after carrying me here, fainting and half chloroformed. He was going to his banker, so he said. When he returned, he found me with my face covered with blood. I had tried to kill myself by striking my forehead against the wall. Christine, groaned Raoul, and he began to sob. Then he had me bound. I am not allowed to die until 11 o'clock tomorrow evening. Mademoiselle, I declared, the monster bound you, and he shall unbind you. You have only to play the necessary part. Remember that he loves you. Alas, we heard. Am I likely to forget it? Remember it, and smile on him, entreat him, tell him that your bonds hurt you. But Christine Daae said, Hush! I hear something in the wall on the lake. It is he. Go away! Go away! Go away! We could not go away, even if we wanted to, I said, as impressively as I could. We cannot leave this, and we are in the torture chamber. Hush! Whispered Christine again. Heavy steps dragged slowly behind the wall, stopped, and then made the floor creak once more. Next came a tremendous sigh, followed by a cry of horror from Christine, and we heard Erik's voice. I beg your pardon for letting you see a face like this. What a state I am in, am I not? It's the other one's fault. Why did he ring? Do I ask people who pass to tell me the time? He will never ask anybody the time again. It is the siren's fault. Another sigh, deeper, more tremendous still, came from the abysmal depths of a soul. Why did you cry out, Christine? Because I'm in pain, Erik. I thought I had frightened you. Erik, unloose my bonds. Am I not your prisoner? You will try to kill yourself again. You have given me till 11 o'clock tomorrow evening, Erik. The footsteps dragged along the floor once more. After all, since we are to die together, and since I am just as eager to die as you are, yes, I have had enough of this life, you know. Wait, don't move. Oh, wait. Let me repeat that, because that was Christine's voice and it's Erik's text. After all, since we are to die together, and since I am just as eager to die as you are, Yes, I haven't had enough of this life, you know. Wait. Don't move. I will release you. You have only one word to say. No, and it will at once be finished with everybody. You are right. You are right. Why wait till 11 o'clock tomorrow evening? True, it would have been grander, finer, but that is childish nonsense. We should only think of ourselves in this life, of our own death. The rest doesn't matter. You're looking at me because I am all wet. Oh, my dear, it's raining cats and dogs outside. Apart from that, Christine, I believe I am suffering from hallucinations. You know, the man who rang at the siren's door just now, I wonder if he's ringing at the bottom of the lake. Well, he was rather like... There, turn round. Are you glad? You're free now. Oh, Christine, look at your poor dear wrists. Tell me, have I hurt them? That alone deserves death. Talking of death, I must sing his requiem. Hearing these terrible remarks, I received an awful presentiment. I too had once rung at the monster's door, and, without knowing it, must have set some warning current in motion. And I remembered the two arms that had emerged from the inky waters. What poor wretch had strayed to that shore this time? Who was the other one? The one whose requiem we now heard sung? Erik sang like the god of thunder, sang a Des Irae that enveloped us as in a storm. The elements seemed to rage around us. Suddenly, the organ and the voice ceased so suddenly that Monsieur de Cheny and I jumped back on the other side of the wall with a shock, and the voice, now changed and transformed, distinctly graded out these metallic syllables. What have you done with my bag? That's the end of the chapter. Man! Erik going mad. I kind of like it. I'm a little bit into it. Yep. This is interesting. It's pretty epic. Okay, we shall do another chapter. Chapter 23. The tortures began. The Persian's narrative continued. The voice repeated angrily, "What have you done with my bag?" So it was to take my bag that you asked me to release you. We heard hurried steps, Christine running back to the Louis Philippe room, as though to seek shelter in front of our wall. "What are you running away for?" asked the furious voice, which had followed her. "Give me back my bag, will you? Don't you know that it is the bag of life and death?" "Listen to me, Erik," sighed the girl. As it is settled that we are to live together, what difference can it make to you?" "You know there are only 2 keys in it," said the monster. "What do you want to do?" "I want to look at this room which I have never seen, and which you have always kept hidden from me." "It's woman's curiosity," she said in a tone which she tried to render playful. But the trick was too childish for Erik to be taken in by it. "I don't like curious women," he retorted, "and you had better remember the story of Bluebeard and be careful. Come, give me back my bag. Give me back my bag. Leave the key alone, will you, you inquisitive little thing?" And he chuckled, while Christine gave a cry of pain. Erik had evidently recovered the bag from her. At that moment, the Viscount could not help uttering an exclamation of impotent rage. "Hello, what's that?" said the monster. "Did you hear, Christine?" No, replied the poor girl. "I heard nothing." "I thought I heard a cry." "A cry? Are you going mad, Erik? Whom do you expect to give a cry in this house? I cried out because you hurt me. I heard nothing." "I don't like the way you said that. You're trembling. You're quite excited. You're lying. There was a cry. There was a cry. There is someone in the torture chamber. Aha! I understand now. There is no one there, Erik. I understand. No one. The man you want to marry, perhaps?" I don't want to marry anybody. You know I don't. Another nasty chuckle. Well, it won't take long to find out. Christine, my love, we need not open the door to see what is happening in the torture chamber. Would you like to see? Would you like to see? Look here. If there is really someone there, you will see the invisible window light up at the top of the wall, near the ceiling. We have only to draw back the black curtain and put out the light here. There, that's it. Let's put out the light. You are not afraid of the dark. When you're with your little husband. Then we heard Christine's voice of anguish. No, I'm frightened. I tell you, I'm frightened of the dark. I don't care about that room now. You're always frightening me, like a child with your torture chamber. And so I became inquisitive. But I don't care about it now. Not a bit. Not a bit. And that which I feared above all things began, automatically. We were suddenly flooded with light. Yes, on our side of the wall everything seemed aglow. The Viscount de Cheny was so much taken by surprise that he staggered where he stood, and the angry voice roared. I told you there was someone. Do you see the window now? The lighted window, right up there? The man behind the wall can't see it, but you shall go up and up the folding steps. That is what they are there for. You have often asked me to tell you, and now you know. They are there to give a peep into the torture chamber, you inquisitive little thing. What do you mean by a torture chamber? Who is being tortured? Erik. Erik, say you are only trying to frighten me. Say it, if you love me, Erik. There are no tortures, are there? Go and look through the little window, dear. I do not know if the Viscount heard the girl's swooning voice, for he was too much absorbed by the astounding spectacle that now appeared before his distracted gaze. As for me, I had seen that sight too often through the little window at the time of the rosy hours of Mazenderan, and I cared only for what was being said next door, seeking for a hint how to act, what resolution to take. Go and peep through the little window. Tell me what he looks like. We heard the steps being dragged against the wall. Up with you? No? Then I will go up myself, dear. Oh, very well, I will go up. Let me go. Oh, my darling, how sweet of you. How nice of you to save me the exertion at my age. Tell me what he looks like. At that moment, we distinctly heard these words above our heads. There is no one there, dear. No one? Are you sure there is no one? Why, of course not. No one. Well, that's all right. What's the matter, Christine? You're not going to faint, are you, considering there is no one there? Here, come down. That's it. Pull yourself together, as there is no one there. But how do you like the landscape? Oh, very much. There, that's right. You're better now, are you not? That's right. You are much better. No emotions. And what a funny house, isn't it, with landscapes like that inside it? Yes. It's like the Musée Grévin. But I say, Erik, there are no tortures in there. What a fright you gave me. Why? Considering there is no one there? Did you design that room? It's very handsome, you know. You're a great artist, Erik. Yes, a great artist in my own line. But tell me, Erik, why did you call that room the torture chamber? Oh, it's very simple. First of all, what did you see? I saw a forest. And what is in a forest? Trees. And what is in a tree? Birds. Did you see any birds? No, I did not see any birds. Well, what did you see? Think. You saw branches. And what is in a branch? Asked the terrible voice. There's a gibbet. That is why I call my forest the torture chamber, of course. It's only a way of talking. It's all a joke, you know. I never express myself like other people. I never do anything like other people. But I am getting very tired of it. I am sick and tired of having a forest and a torture chamber in my house, and of living like Mont Blanc in a house with a false bottom. I'm tired of it. I want a nice, quiet flat, with ordinary doors and windows, and a wife inside it, like anybody else. A wife whom I can love and take out on Sundays, and keep amused on weekdays. Oh, you would have lots of fun with me. I have more than one trick in my bag, without counting card tricks. I say, here, shall I show you a few card tricks? It will help us pass the time while waiting for 11 o'clock tomorrow evening. My dear little Christine, are you listening to me? Tell me you love me. No, you don't love me, but no matter. You will. Once you could not look at me. Once you could not look at my mask because you knew what was behind. And now you don't mind looking at it, and you forget what is behind. Oh, one can get used to everything, if one wishes. Plenty of young people who do not care for each other before marriage have adored each other since. Oh, I don't know what I am talking about. But you would have lots of fun with me. For instance, I am the greatest ventriloquist that ever lived. I am the finest ventriloquist in the world. You're laughing. Perhaps you don't believe me. Listen. The wretch who really was the finest ventriloquist in the world was only trying to divert the child's attention from the torture chamber. But it was a stupid scheme, for Christine thought of nothing but us. She repeatedly besought him, in the gentlest tones which she could assume. Put out the light in the little window. Erik, do put out the light in the little window. For she saw that this light, which appeared so suddenly, and of which the monster had spoken in so threatening a voice, must mean something terrible. One thing must have pacified her for a moment, and that was seeing the two of us behind the wall in the midst of that dazzling light, alive and well. But she would certainly have felt much easier if the light had been put out. Meantime, the other had already begun to play the ventriloquist. He said, Here, I raise my mask a little. Oh, only a little. You see my lips? Such lips as I have? They're not moving. My mouth is closed. Such mouth as I have, and yet you hear my voice. Where will you have it? In your left ear? In your right ear? In the table? In those little ebony boxes on the mantelpiece? Listen, dear. It's in the little box on the right of the mantelpiece. What does it say? Shall I turn the scorpion? And now, crack! What does it say in the little box on the left? Shall I turn the grasshopper? And now, crack! Here it is in the little leather bag. What does it say? I am the little bag of life and death. And now, crack! It is in Carlotta's throat, in Carlotta's golden throat, in Carlotta's crystal throat as I live. What does it say? It says, It's I, Mr. Toad. It's I singing. I feel without alarm. Quack! With its melody and wind me. Quack! And now, crack! It is on a chair in the ghost box, and it says, Madame Carlotta is singing tonight to bring the chandelier down. And now, crack! Ha! Where is Erik's voice now? Listen, Christine, darling, listen. It is behind the door of the torture chamber. Listen. It's myself in the torture chamber. And what do I say? I say, woe to them that have a nose, a real nose, and come to look round the torture chamber. Ha! Ha ha! Oh, the ventriloquist's terrible voice. It was everywhere, everywhere. It passed through the little invisible window, through the walls. It ran around us, between us. Erik was there, speaking to us. We made a movement as though to fling ourselves upon him, but already, swifter, more fleeting than the voice of the echo, Erik's voice had leapt back behind the wall. Soon we were able to hear nothing more at all, for this is what happened. Erik! Erik! Said Christine's voice. You tire me with your voice. Don't go on, Erik. Isn't it very hot out? Isn't it very hot here? Oh yes, replied Erik's voice. The heat is unbearable. But what does this mean? The wall is quite hot. The wall is burning. I tell you, Christine, dear, it is because of the forest next door. Well, what does that have to do with it, the forest? Why, didn't you see that it was an African forest? And the monster laughed so loudly and hideously that we could no longer distinguish Christine's beseeching cries. The Vicomte de Chagny shouted and banged against the walls like a madman. I could not restrain him, but we heard nothing except the monster's laughter, and the monster himself can have heard nothing else. And then there was the sound of a body falling on the floor and being dragged along, and a door slammed, and then nothing more around us save the scorching silence of the tropics in the heart of an equatorial forest. Well, snap. That was good. I liked that. It's getting real. That's not what I expected. I'm a little confused. Like, is the forest in the torture chamber on fire? And that's why it's an African forest, and African forests burn. And that's why it's getting hot, because the heat from the room's coming out. I don't know. Honestly, when they dropped in the torture chamber and Raoul was like caught off guard by like what the torture chamber looked like, I honestly pictured just like a blank space torture chamber with like, I don't know, bodies on the walls or something, like half tortured people hanging around unconscious, or just skeletons just like hanging on the walls. And that's why Raoul was so crazy. But the Persian was like, I've seen it all before, because it's a replica of the same. Anyway, I don't know. That's where my head went in the whole situation. But apparently there's a forest in there. Crazy. Anyway, until next time, we are nearly done. I think 2 or 3 more. 2 or 3 more. That's if I read. Honestly, I'm going to say 2 more. 2 more videos. We'll see if I'm right. Okay. Bye.